And coming back over here, we can see how video games thusly emerged as an art form as well as a medium of entertainment. As I said before, Pong was just a hand-eye coordination game that gave you a small dopamine drip. But as graphics got better, video games became a larger industry. There was an opportunity for visual artists in the field of drawing, in the field of lighting, in the field of motion. There was an opportunity for musicians. Some video games have very extensive soundtracks. There was an opportunity for extremely good storytelling to be monetized through a video game. The script writers for video games are often the same script writers for Hollywood television shows and films and can make the same or more money in video games. Video games became a big business that is done by very large corporations like Electronic Arts, or even individual design shops that are groups of just 3 or 4 people. And when a team of 3 or 4 people can make a game that sells millions of units and earns them $30 or $40 million of revenue, that small team can become very wealthy. Every individual in that team can become very wealthy. I even speak about in the Atom publication in chapter 11 as one of the use cases for the personalized atom, the individualized atom. You can see that as an audiobook chapter in this tile over here. But that is how video games became such a big business and are so complementary to major entertainment franchises, and that's why video games are coordinated with films and TV shows as well, with the same actors doing voices for those video games, because it's that big of a business. But that became possible because of the computational advancements. That is why games are no longer only the type of games that we experienced in the days of Pong in the 1970s. There's a lot of employment for artists in video games, for musicians. As I said, it is a big industry and it is only growing as it gets more immersive. As the graphics eventually improve, even independent of this reversion back to the trend line, even on the slower trajectory, games will be more immersive, and eventually when AR, VR becomes workable, that will also be a dimension of game immersion, and it will be an even bigger business at that time. So this is yet another reason for you to wish for this reversion back to the computational trend line. Like I said, everything from economic progress to telescope power to video game graphics quality is dependent on this, as are a whole host of other things. It's safe to say everything about the progress of humanity is dependent on this, no matter what importance level you assign to each of those examples. Now, in closing, I will show some vignettes of upcoming video games from 2023-24. You can judge whether that is a significant jump from the earlier games, such as the 2016 examples that I showed earlier in this video, and we'll talk about that at the very end. So here are some video vignettes.
Take down with these cutthroat pirates. We're not just here to shoot the bad guys. We're peacekeepers. We protect the people. What have the two of you done?
Now, anyone from the 1990s who saw those video games would be extremely impressed. They would be excited about what the future holds for them as a game player. However, it's also apparent that the improvement relative to the 2016 video games that we saw is not that much, and people talk about the Unreal 5 engine and so forth, but that still represents only incremental improvement that is flattening. It is not on the same exponential curve. In closing, I'll show you the time frame of video game hardware consoles as one final point of proof. These are the generations of video game hardware consoles from the early 1970s to present. First generation, second generation, the notable Atari 2600 was in the second generation, all the way up to what is now the ninth generation, with the eighth generation winding down and the ninth now ascendant. This is easy to track with the PlayStation series because there is a new version of the PlayStation corresponded with generations. There was the original PlayStation, also called the PlayStation 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5. We're currently in the PlayStation 5's era. And as you see, the time between these generations is now rising. This corresponds to the flattening of the computational curve that we saw in the supercomputing power chart as well. Under the accelerating rate of technological change, you would expect these generations to compress, but they're not compressing, quite the opposite in fact. Each console life cycle is lasting longer than before, despite much more dollars involved in each generation of video games now versus in the 1970s or 80s, where it was still a very small industry in terms of revenue and the employment of participants. So this is something worth tracking for those who are interested in this subject. Anyway, I hope you found this type of content to be interesting. And if you like these types of videos, then I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.